My mother was on the committee during the planning, and she's a great fan of Williamsburg. And the mansion is in that style.
It's a palace of democracy, and there's a real nobility about it. And you feel that when you come into the house. This is a wonderful commonwealth, and this building is meant to reflect that.
That was a real joy to move into a place, this beautiful house. The governor's residence in Pennsylvania is probably one of the nicest ones in the whole country.
Dick and I have 4 sons. And our first responsibility was to turn that building into a home for our family.
Well, inaugural day was really our first introduction. 1,000 people shaking hands with him in the grand hallway. Tommy Ridge ran in, went down the banister because it was just too tempting. He was 7 and Leslie was 8 when we moved into the governor's residence.
It was a little scary moving into a house with people helping you. Just wasn't used to it, but it was very special.
It was after the 9/11 attacks, and there was plenty to do for the governor. And so to a great extent, Kathy had to take it from there as far as the move, the engineering of it.
The first night, we just packed a suitcase and stayed overnight in this beautiful new room. And when we woke up in the morning, we both had the same reaction. We kept waiting for someone to walk in and say, what are you two doing here?
That first summer, the staff on their own time and with their own resources had built this unbelievable treehouse on the 2nd Street side of the residence in a great big huge river birch. And of course, the kids were very happy to discover that was about the only place on the grounds where the state police cameras did not view.
We were happy there. My parents were happy. I think that's one of the happiest times in my mother's life.
I don't know whether you remember this, the warm day we moved in 1979, you were having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich sitting on the front steps, and people were walking by and calling in, "Hey, Governor Thornburgh," or "Dick."
Never did finish that sandwich. Our first big event, family event, was the first Thanksgiving. I think we had 46 people sitting at the one long table. It was just one of those magical days.
I can't imagine there are too many more beautiful places in the world.
My mother had been a student at the Child Guidance Clinic at the University of Pennsylvania and the Marriage Council of the University of Pennsylvania. And when she saw the unused space she had in the basement, she reached out to a local child service department that worked with children who had brain injuries. And she brought into the mansion a school for these children so that they could get a proper education.
I would work late at night, and it would be me and the dogs in the library. And then around midnight, I would go forage. And then if there wasn't anything I liked in the family kitchen, I went to the kitchen that served the house. They had a coffee mocha fudge. And I would literally, the dogs and I would have a half gallon.
I, Robert Patrick Casey.
It was the pinnacle of his life to become governor. He worked hard to get where he was, and he appreciated being there. I mean, we both felt very fortunate to have that opportunity and to live in a house like that.
The best part about living in the governor's residence is the staff. People. I mean, it's a relatively small staff, about 10 people, but they almost become part of the family.
I remember telling the chef that I love to cook, so I would be cooking for Tom and for events at the governor's residence. And then I think we had a meal that Barry made, and they're like, okay, you can do that.
There's a special quality above and beyond the grandeur of the home, especially at the holidays, and that's a real knack.
The staff who are here are incredible people.
Most of all, they make people feel at home wherever they are, whatever part of the grounds or building they're in. They make you feel really welcome here.
One time we had the staff come to visit us at our lake house. They came up on a bus, I think. My husband cooked dinner for them because they had cooked for us so many times. We became very attached to them. We really loved them, and it was very difficult to say goodbye.
The residence itself is comforting, but it also is a place of challenge.
When Hurricane Agnes hit, the activity was frenetic. There was evacuation out of the mansion because the flooding was so severe, and then returning a day or so later in a rowboat. Those are staggering pictures.
He came down the long hallway, and I was finishing breakfast, and you went like that and said, I've just gotten word about TMI. And that was like 2 months into Dick's term. So the first hearing we had about that event was in the governor's residence.
As time went on, it developed an inertia of its own. President Carter came to visit here because this was the first time this had ever happened on the face of the earth.
That's right.
There was no playbook that you could pull down and say steps A, B, C, and D.
After September 11th and Tom's decision to go to Washington, it was a very abrupt transition for us. So it was a challenging time for us as a family.
Everybody was helpful during the process. Can't underestimate how important the men and women in that staff and how close we came to each and every one of them. We still stay in contact with several members.
At that time when I was governor, the entire emergency response crew was involved in a big mine rescue at a mine called Q Creek. We wanted to have them there as our guest because, at least for those involved in the rescue, probably 300 strong directly and indirectly, and then the 9 families who faced the emotional rigors of being trapped for 80 hours. They did not breathe easy during that time. So it was nice that we could have a social gathering and be together and take it easy.
Wonderful state, wonderful office, wonderful residence.
Right.
We're here by the grace of the people of Pennsylvania, and it's their home.
Nothing but great memories about the house, no question about that, and I hope it stands for years and years to come.
I think in our role as governor and first lady, I see us as caretakers of the people's home of Pennsylvania.
It was a beautiful place to live, beautiful furniture, wonderful people who really became family.
The way we see this space, it is trying to treat it as an embassy for Pennsylvania. We're being really Pennsylvania chauvinists.
Pennsylvania proud.
Pennsylvania proud, absolutely.